Hi, good morning. Nice to see you guys, bright and early. How are you feeling? Yeah? Good, awesome. I'm going to be talking to you guys about learnings from deploying AI projects in an enterprise environment. And first, a tiny bit about who we are. So Springbok AI, thank you so much for the intro, Philip. And Springbok AI is, as you mentioned, a data science and AI consultancy. We are 37 academics and PhDs with backgrounds in a variety of different fields, such as computational neuroscience, physics, data security, etc. And really, first and foremost, we see ourselves as problem solvers. We don't necessarily specialize on a specific industry, but rather we cross-pollinate from our expertise and experience across different industries. And what we tend to build most is bespoke high-performance software for process automation in enterprise. So we've worked with companies like Henkel, Airbus, Mercer, Barclays, etc. And we also partner with Raza. I don't know, for you guys that build conversational AI and use open source software, you probably have come across this. The reason I want to talk to you guys about, or the reason I'm giving you guys this talk is because I think this has been a super phenomenal conference with a developer focus. There's been really great workshops yesterday, and what we've experienced in the past with projects that we've worked on, not only from the client's perspective, but also from our perspective, is that it's helpful for developers to understand what a business project, an implementation project, actually needs in order to be successful. And it's not just delivering a good product, but it's also how you deliver it and how you make the other people on your client side feel. So I want to give you some tools and insights on how to make projects successful from a developer's perspective as well, by showing you what it's like from the business side. So first of all, like any good paper argument, I want to start with what my assumptions here are. So firstly, you've already sold the project. So your head of sales or whatever has sold this project. 2, it's an AI or conversational AI project that you're implementing. Number 3, data security is sorted. And number 4, you want to stay in business. And then let's talk about your personal, but also your boss's or your company's objectives in doing this project. So first of all, you want to get paid. But who are we kidding? You want to get paid in euros. And then secondly, you want to get repeat business and or get referred. So you want to make more money, also not pounds. And then how do you want to do this? Well, importantly, you want to build a really good product or deliver a really good service, and you want to impress the client. And you want to make your champion in the company, the person that essentially made sure that you got that deal, and that you're building this project or doing this project, you want to make them look good. So I'll talk more about that later. And you want to make them feel like a boss too. And this is really, really important. I can't emphasize this enough. So let's get started. So first things first, work from first principles. So as I'm sure there's a lot of people in here with a maths background, don't need to go too much into this, but basically what it means is that you derive it, what are the ultimate truths that you know? Like how can you take it back to the baseline, understanding what are you working from that you know is correct, and making sure that both you and the client are on the same page with those things. So to give you some examples, so as I said, what do we know to be true? First of all, what is your client's vision? Make sure that that's not only communicated by them to you, but also by you back to them. It sounds really basic, but it is really, really helpful. And make sure that the technical people on the team understand this as well. So for example, this is one of our clients, and this is the vision that we understood from them in the workshop. This is not what they read to us. Oh. Maybe I need the microphone. Do you want to pass me that just in case? I think it's working. It's working. Okay, cool. Awesome. So for example, the long-term vision for insert company is to become a data-driven manufacturing business that effectively leverages intelligent, self-learning, and self-improving systems to maximize its resources for the benefit of people, profit, and the environment. I can't tell you enough how valuable it is for the client to just feel like they're being understood and that everybody is on the same page. And then kind of more specifically, understanding how the project that you're working on fits with their short-term and also medium-term objectives. So, for example, are they doing this project because they need to get rid of some budget this quarter? Like, very possible. Are they doing the project because they just want to do an AI project? We've had that happen before. Or do they actually want to solve the problem? Is this somebody wanting to put their name out there and get a promotion? Or do they have to deliver against a specific KPI? So it's really good to kind of understand these things. And then also, what are the motivations of the people on the team? So as I mentioned, like, is someone trying to get a promotion? Are they trying to get their name out there? Are they trying to impress a specific person? Do they just want an AI project on their CV? This isn't a shameful thing to ask, but like, you and your team need to understand what actually the people that you're working with want to get out of it, because it might not be exactly what you think it is or what they're kind of communicating to you on a higher level. So this is really, really valuable to know. And then, as I mentioned, understanding what the KPIs are. So do they want to increase the accuracy from 80 to whatever, 98%? Do they want to decrease the number of steps in the workflow? What do they want to achieve? And of course, as I'm sure you guys know from the projects that you guys have done in the past, the more specific these KPIs are, the more likely it is that you'll be able to deliver something that actually is what the client wants. So number 2, communicate or share what you need to make the project successful. So first of all, understanding roles. I'm going to go through these in a bit more detail. First of all, understanding roles in the project. Second of all, clarity on use cases. Then communicating the quality and quantity of the data that you need. And then also, what are your contingencies? Like, what in the project is contingent on what to be successful, for it to be successful. So when we understand the roles within the project, this is what we use. This is called a RACI chart. How many of you guys have worked with a RACI chart before, just out of curiosity? Okay, not too many. Basically, RACI stands for, and here are the abbreviations, responsible, accountable, contributor, or informed. So within the project, so these are kind of the stages of the project, and up there you can see, I'm not sure it's big enough for all of you to read properly, but these are like the names of the people involved in the project. And not everybody, of course, that's sort of involved in the project in some way necessarily needs to be, CC'd in every email or needs to sign off on everything. And sometimes people switch in and out of projects, both on your guys' team and also on the client side. And it's really helpful to do this at the beginning of the project so that anybody new that's coming into the project understands what it is that they need to do. For example, as I said, like CC somebody or get sign off, or just let somebody know when a next step needs to happen. So yeah, you can Google this, RACI chart. You'll find kind of more information if you want to explore this further. But this is probably the single most important spreadsheet during, during the project. Cool. Any questions at the moment? No? Okay, cool. Secondly, clarity on use cases. So this is potentially a little bit more relevant to, say, agencies who have their clients on a retainer, where it's about delivering a certain amount of hours per month or per quarter. But to really understand, like, what is the actual use case, like, what is the application here, what do you want to get out of it, like I mentioned earlier. It's just so important that everybody is clear on what you're building and why. And then, in terms of the quality and the quantity of data, you need to communicate to the client that not only do you need high-quality data and you need lots of volume, but also when you need it by. And we actually usually show this slide, which shows that when you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And really, with projects where you don't exactly know what you're getting at the beginning, it's just so valuable to communicate very transparently what your expectations are and what people can, or what the clients can expect with what they're giving you at the end of the day. Yeah, and then D, communicate your contingencies and associated timings. So that can be when you need their call or email availability to, for example, check back with subject matter experts. So I'm sure as working from the technical side of a project, you've probably had to inquire with clients about what specific parts of the data mean, something that you're analyzing, so checking back. That needs to obviously be communicated. When do you need those people's time, and for how long? Also, which parts of the project are contingent on others, and then when are holidays or when are people out of office. So to give you an example of what this can look like, this is from a project that we're working on at the moment. So this is kind of the normal timeline. Obviously, here's the Christmas break. Those are sort of the dependencies, as you can see. And then we not only give this timeline, but we also give this. So this is kind of that part here until kind of there, but zoomed in. So we'll have like a list of requirements that we need, like people to interview, types of data, et cetera. And then we'll do sort of a map directly one-on-one to show them what requirements we need when. And this is super helpful just for the clients to manage their time internally as well. And then also, you need a project manager on client side. So there needs to be a dedicated person that you're working with on the client side that you can contact who will be able to distribute the information to the relevant people on their team. And it is your job to, going back to Leo, make that manager look good. So now we're going to kind of talk about in a bit more detail what exactly that means or how to do that. So first of all, I kind of like to go about this to say under promise and over deliver in a way. So really plan contingency budget for timing when you're estimating the length of the project. So not only do you need to make sure you've allocated enough time for quality assurance and testing, but whatever that total amount is, add another 20%. And that's not to kind of screw over the client and get more money at the end of the day. It really is because there can be things that go wrong that need to be resolved, and you don't want to be late. You'd rather be a little bit early. So it's good to plan in that buffer and just make everybody happy at the end of the day. So to give you an example of something that happened to me last week, we had a massive issue with a client trying to transfer data to us onto a secure cloud server. They couldn't get it together. They have a completely outsourced IT team, so they have no IT people in-house, and they couldn't help us on time with their external IT team. So actually, one of our team had to fly over to Dusseldorf to get laptops with the data on it to fly back. Obviously, that held us up. And thankfully, because we've budgeted more time than we definitely needed, we are still on time for the delivery, which actually, when we then talked to the client in that meeting, they were like, okay, we know we're really late, we're really sorry, what's the deal now, what's our timeline looking like? When we said, actually, even despite this delay, we're still on schedule, they were so excited, because it makes this project manager look really, really good, even though he's messed up. And people on the team know that there's been a delay, but still, he looks great. So that's really what you want to achieve. Next, so preempt potential problems. So this is both talking to your project manager about where could potential problems arise and how could we resolve them. Like, who could be a blocker in this? Where could things go wrong? And how can we resolve that? So an example here is we had an issue with open source software that we were going to be using. And it essentially turns out that as long as you have an MIT license for the OSS software that you're intending to use, it's actually fine. Where the issue lies is with GNU licenses. So as long as we sort of swapped out the licenses that they didn't like, their legal team could save themselves the work. We could offer them a guarantee that all the licenses would not have the risk of falling under the copyleft effect, and hence we got that problem out of the way. But that was just something that we managed to establish through conversation that could have lasted a lot longer if we hadn't sort of just brought that up really transparently with them. And then also from the technical side, of course, ask within your own team, considering the data that we now have, or maybe not, we maybe don't have that data yet, but what are the issues that we foresee? So it could be like a change of file formats or whatever. I'm sure you guys have faced tons of issues in your projects, but as in, challenges to be overcome. But it's just good to know what those could be and to try and mitigate those as fast as possible. And then also, try and visualize data and findings that you get from the client. So when we do workshops, we try to get some actual real sample data from them that's relevant to the project and visualize it back to them and actually show them what their project looks like when they just put it into, into something visual. So this is an example of a project where the client thought they had an accuracy an accuracy that ended up being very, very different if you looked at the distribution. And they had no idea that this was how their data was behaving. And just showing them this and realizing, actually, their data, or from the client's perspective, hey, wow, our data looks so different than what we thought it behaves like, and actually we need to do a whole set of analysis, or need to let these guys, or an agency or something, let them do a whole set of analysis before we can actually go to the solution part to understand what are the error sources. This is really helpful for them, not only just to understand it and visualize it, but also actually for, say, the project manager to show to his execs and say, this is where the problem lies. We've identified where we're falling short and what we need to do. So another thing that we do off the back of workshops, this part is just really copy-paste from one of our slides, is to show, this was the brainstorming process in terms of the kind of first part of the scoping. These were the priorities that we picked out, and then we applied our methodology, and these are the two areas that we developed further in terms of the project. But really just showing your process is really helpful. And of course, the technical team will have a big role to play in scoping out those ideas during the workshop, hopefully. And so it's good to kind of bring them on and have everybody on the same page there too. And then understanding your audience. So when you give a presentation to the client about, say, your first or second milestone, just understand, are the people in the room really, really technical, or are they from a non-technical background? How do you need to scale down or dial up the amount of technical language that you're using? To what extent do you need to describe the exact methodologies that you're working with versus not? And then also, and lastly, make your client presentations look professional. So when you're sending something out to a client, say a deck to pitch for a project, or something like a management report after a project, something to follow up, just remember that really what you want to do, and I mentioned this earlier, is to make your project manager and to make your client and the person who's championed you to get this project, it's to make them look really good in front of their boss. That's probably what they wanted to get out of it in probably about 90% of cases. So giving them something that's really presentable, where they feel not only relieved, but actually really proud that they've worked with you and that they've sort of made this bet on potentially a smaller company or somebody that has less years of experience in the industry. They've taken a leap, and so it's always better, also in this case, to kind of not under-promise and over-deliver, but just generally deliver as best as you can. Just think about what you're presenting visually. Is this a world-class effort? Really is what I sort of ask my team. And it does pay to get a designer to really make those slides or whatever presentation material come to life. So to summarize, the kind of three pieces that I talked about. So number one, work from first principles. Understand the expectations, the short term, the long term, and the individual expectations and motivations. Number two, communicate or share what you need to make the project successful. So we talked about the RACI chart. We talked about kind of data you need and what to communicate about garbage in, garbage out, and then the project and data contingencies. And lastly, make your PM look good. So here we talked about planning the 20% buffer, preempting potential problems, showing your process, gearing your material towards your audience, and to have sexy materials that they want to show their boss. Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Any questions? Yes.
What kind of other crazy stories do you have, like the ones with moving to Dusseldorf to carry on that process?
What other crazy stories do we have? There's definitely been some last-minute server fails that meant that we couldn't deploy on time. There have been so one of our project managers for a project that we're currently working with. We've just kicked off the project, and then he's had a really unlucky streak. So he had a lung infection, then he had a slip disc, and now he's had a car accident. And so the project has been delayed by 6 months because he's been off the radar, basically. But basically, because we had this RACI chart, thankfully, another project manager was able to take over from him quite seamlessly. So that's been really, really helpful for us to be able to move forward from that. But yeah, these things can happen, and you just need to find a workaround. And that's why planning for that to potentially happen, although it might seem a little bit sinister, but it's just really valuable. Yeah.